A crisis that never made the headlines. It unfolded without sirens, without breaking news, without a single moment that demanded public attention. And yet, beneath the surface, a crisis was already reshaping the market in ways few would recognize until much later. This story matters now because not all crises announce themselves. Some resolve quietly, leaving no dramatic memory behind, only altered behavior, changed incentives, and invisible scars. To understand why markets sometimes feel permanently different after nothing seems to have happened, we need to revisit the crisis no one ever named. It began during a stretch of apparent normalcy. Prices moved within familiar ranges. Liquidity appeared healthy. Headlines focused elsewhere. But inside the system, stress was building, not explosively but persistently. Small disruptions accumulated without release. The early signal appeared in settlement systems. Delays lengthened slightly. Counterparties became cautious about timing. Nothing broke. Nothing failed. But buffers were used more often, more quietly, more routinely. What had once been exceptional started becoming normal. Institutions adjusted internally. Exposure limits were nudged lower. Collateral requirements tightened at the margins. Overnight assumptions shortened. These weren't reactions to panic. They were preemptive defenses against something unnamed. The reveal deepened when liquidity stopped behaving symmetrically. It was abundant during calm periods, then vanished abruptly during stress, even minor stress. Markets felt jumpy. Participants stepped back faster than before. Confidence existed, but only conditionally. Still, no headlines appeared. No indices collapsed. No official statements were issued. From the outside, nothing was wrong. From the inside, everything felt tighter, less forgiving, more sensitive to error. The crisis wasn't visible because it never erupted. It was absorbed, quietly, and absorption changes systems. It teaches them what they can survive and what they should avoid at all costs. The crisis that never made the headlines wasn't failure. It was a lesson, and that lesson was already shaping every decision that followed. As the system absorbed the strain, behavior shifted in subtle but persistent ways. Participants became quicker to step aside. Trades that once felt routine now required justification. Liquidity was treated as something to protect, not assume. The market still functioned, but with caution woven into every move. The reveal deepened when minor disruptions began producing outsized hesitation. A delayed payment, a technical glitch, a temporary mismatch in settlement. None of these events caused losses, but each one reinforced the same instinct. Reduce exposure early. Avoid being last. Preserve flexibility at all costs. The early conflict emerged inside institutions tasked with maintaining flow. Market makers widened spreads, not dramatically, but enough to compensate for uncertainty. Clearing firms adjusted margins incrementally. Funding desks shortened terms. The system was becoming less tolerant of friction, even as friction became more common. What made this crisis invisible was its success. Every stress was managed, every delay resolved. No defaults occurred. No rescues were required. But resilience was being consumed quietly, like fuel burn to keep an engine running smoothly. Each intervention left less margin for the next one. Over time, these adjustments compounded. Liquidity pools fragmented. Depth became uneven. Markets reacted faster to smaller signals. What once felt stable now felt fragile, not because something broke, but because everything felt closer to breaking. From the outside, nothing demanded attention. From the inside, participants knew the truth. The system had been tested repeatedly, quietly, and had learned to fear repetition more than shock. The crisis that never made the headlines wasn't defined by collapse. It was defined by memory. The memory of how close things came, without ever crossing a line. And that memory was already changing how risk will be taken in the future. The tension reached its peak when the system encountered another routine stress, one that should have been trivial. On its own, it was nothing. But this time, the reaction was immediate and widespread. Participants stepped back simultaneously. Liquidity evaporated across multiple venues. Prices moved sharply, not because of new information, but because no one wanted to test the system's tolerance again. The memory of prior strain dictated behavior faster than logic. The conflict intensified as defensive mechanisms activated in unison. Risk models reduced exposure. Hedges were added aggressively. Funding desks pulled back. Each move made sense individually. Together, they created a vacuum. For the first time, the crisis threatened to surface, not through failure, but through hesitation. The system wasn't breaking, it was freezing. And freezing in markets can be just as dangerous as collapse. Institutions recognized the danger and responded quietly. Liquidity was injected behind the scenes. Timelines were extended. Buffers were temporarily restored. The actions weren't publicized. They didn't need to be. They were meant to calm insiders, not reassure the public. The response worked. The moment passed. Prices stabilized. Liquidity returned. The market moved on. But something irreversible had happened. The system had learned that even small stresses could provoke coordinated retreat. The threshold for collective caution had dropped. What once required a crisis now required only a reminder. The crisis that never made the headlines had finally revealed its cost, not in losses, but in confidence. And once confidence is reshaped by memory, markets never behave the same way again. The system had survived, but it had changed. The climax resolved without drama, without aftermath, and without acknowledgement. From the outside, the episode vanished into routine market noise. No charts recorded it as a turning point. No history books would mark the date. Yet inside the system, nothing felt the same. The resolution unfolded through lasting adjustment. Participants carried forward a new instinct. Step back sooner. Protect liquidity earlier. Assume less tolerance for stress. The market became more defensive, not because it had failed, but because it remembered how close it had come. Risk was repriced quietly. Margins stayed higher. Depth remained thinner. Volatility reacted faster to smaller triggers. The system functioned, but with less generosity. It no longer absorbed uncertainty freely. It rationed trust. Modern relevance is everywhere. Markets today often feel jumpy, sensitive, quick to retreat. That isn't irrational. It's learned behavior. The legacy of stresses that never became crises, but still rewire how participants respond when friction appears. The crisis that never made the headlines wasn't forgotten. It was internalized. And internalized experiences shape systems more permanently than public disasters ever could. Because markets don't just remember crashes. They remember near misses. And those memories decide how much risk the future is willing to tolerate. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future. A crisis